Live from parts unknown, you're listening to Simon Miller's Pro Wrestling Podcast, the only wrestling podcast on the planet, we think. Sit back, relax, prepare for positivity to run through your veins as Simon Miller gives you your weekly dose of powerful pro wrestling audio. It is Miller Time.
Hello, welcome to Simon Miller's Pro Wrestling Podcast. My name is Simon Miller, and this is a pro wrestling podcast. Before we get into everything, I do apologise. There was no episode last week, and that this is going up on a Thursday, but you may or you may have not seen. I'll talk about it properly in a few minutes. I was wrestling at the Defiant wrestling shows last week, and I got injured, but I just want to sort of say that at the very start, in case you're wondering where I've been, and then, like I say, we'll get to that. We'll get to that in 1 second. But we are back. You know, life is always going to throw curveballs at us, but it's how you hit those curveballs and come back swinging, and hopefully that's what we're doing this week. And I'm pleased to say that I am joined by a Patreon member, which I always enjoy, and it's my man Steve. Steve, how are you doing today?
I am very well, thank you, Simon, and how are you?
Well, you know, I've been better. That's a good segue question. So, if anybody doesn't know, I just wanted to update everybody, because it's all over. You can go to What Culture and watch some stuff. I've been tweeting some stuff, all this kind of whatnot. But yes, last Tuesday, I was fighting Gabriel Kidd in a professional wrestling match. He hit me with a lariat, and on impact of his arm hitting my shoulder, he cracked my collarbone, as I now know, in three, not even two, in three different places. So, yeah, it's certainly not a good injury. In a way, it could have been worse. Like, I always think muscle is worse than bone, because bone just has to set and it will heal, whereas muscles can cause you a problem for years. Well, that's kind of the going idea anyway. But it does suck. It does mean not only am I going to be on the shelf for a little bit, but I can't go to the gym, which sucks for me. Anyone that knows me, that's like my peace time. It's my downtime. So having that off the table is difficult. But yeah, I think the best thing to do is I will do another episode all about this once I know more. I've got a follow-up appointment tomorrow where I'm going to find out if I've got surgery. So I'll try and update you over the weekend. But for now, I would suggest heading over to What Culture Wrestling. And there's 2 injury updates on there that you can watch. And like I say, over the weekend, I'll drop another podcast or early next week. And I'll let you know what the diagnosis is. But enough of that. Enough talking about me. First of all, Steve, I want to thank you for all your support and actually being a patron in the first place. It allows me to do these podcasts. So I really appreciate that.
No, you're most welcome.
Thank you. And anyone that would like to obviously come join the Patreon and come on the podcast, it's just patreon.com/Simon Miller 316. There should be links no matter where you're listening to. Right, now, Steve, let's focus on you for a little bit before we talk about everything that's happened over the last 7 or maybe even 14 days in pro wrestling. Fill me in on how you started to love this crazy thing that we call pro wrestling. You're a WWE guy, you're a Japan guy, you're a Ring of Honor guy. Like, what's your story to get to the point where you're now talking to me on a pro wrestling focused podcast?
Well, it's quite a long story. It goes back quite a long way because I'm not a young man, unfortunately.
Nothing wrong with that, man. Nothing wrong with being a little bit old.
But just right off the bat, I was like, I am almost exclusively a WWE guy.
Yeah.
Not really because I've excluded the other products for any particular reason other than just time. I barely make time in my life to fit in all of the WWE content.
I'm not surprised. There's loads of it.
And in fact, the truth is that I don't watch 205 Live. I'd love to, but that's the one thing that kind of dropped off. NXT I will never miss. I do think, it's a bit of a cliched opinion now, but NXT is the best product the best show that WWE put on regularly.
Yeah.
The weekly show and the takeover special. So I never miss an NXT. Occasionally I do have to miss a Raw or a SmackDown, but most of the time I watch that every week, and obviously I never miss the pay-per-view. Subscribe to the WWE Network the week that it came out in the UK. And so I've not missed a pay-per-view since. In terms of how I got into it, it goes back, I would say, probably to early 90s, 1991, 92. I was coming towards the end of my run at primary school. And suddenly, there was this kind of explosion of WWF, as it was then. Yeah. All the kids in school suddenly were coming in with lunch boxes and folders and school bags and everything that have got these images of. It was Hulk Hogan, and it was Ultimate Warrior and Legion of Doom and British Bulldog. I suppose British Bulldog in the UK because he was our boy. But it was those 4 guys, really. And before I'd even got a chance to watch any wrestling, just seeing the images of these guys. I mean, how can any 8, 9, 10-year-old kid see that? The amount of color and the amount of kind of pomp and ceremony that the drama that you see looking at them, and not instantly be captivated by what's going on. So straight away, we didn't have Sky TV. I imagine that the explosion that happened at that time was probably coincided with the launch of Sky, didn't it?
It was very, it was
the early 90s.
Yeah, because I've always said I was really lucky to have Sky as a kid because my dad worked in TV, so he had to have it for his job. Like, it was just one of those lucky things where, like, this is what you got to do. And that's how I got to see it all. And you're right, it did all tied in.
All right, so we didn't have that. So, I was the cool kids in school would kind of come in talking about it and carrying all the merchandise and things. And I'd be asking all these questions. I remember one time I asked, because, they used to have the logo, the kind of the blue and gold logo that looked like a W. And I asked one of the kids, what does WF stand for? And I got this kind of slightly condescending, well, actually, it's WWF. And I was like, wow. And I was kind of, even from that, I thought, this is there's so much to learn and experience. And so we started going to our local video shop. And so every weekend we'd get one of the pay-per-views. And there weren't very many in those days. There was only like the big four every year. And so we'd get a new Survivor Series each weekend. And so bit by bit, I started working my way backwards through, not in any particular order. You go and you pick the one that looked the most interesting from the box. So I was watching a Survivor Series that's got Hulk Hogan and Demolition and, again, Legion of Doom, all the guys with the face paint and all the colours and everything. And almost from the minute I watched it, I was like, I was hooked. This was something that, I was a fan, the minute I sat down and watched it.
And have you ever had to have a break since, or have you been sort of with it right the way through?
Unfortunately, yeah, I did have a break.
Everyone has a break. Everybody.
But mine was not a break by choice. My break was imposed upon me somewhat. So my parents got cable TV at the end of 1992, and the first pay-per-view that I got to watch on that was the Survivor Series '92. And then from then, because they showed the pay-per-views free on Sky Sports, I don't think they were live to start with, but they showed them for free, so we didn't have to pay for them. And I watched pretty much and videoed every pay-per-view. You video it on long play. And so
you could get that tape.
I built up a tape library, of every pay-per-view up until WrestleMania 12. So it was WrestleMania 12, the one with Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart had the Iron Man match.
Yeah.
And I'd got every pay-per-view pretty much on video, watched them all. And then I come home from school one day, and my parents announced that they were cancelling our cable subscription, and I was heartbroken. And you don't, as a kid, you don't understand about mum and dad's finances and the reasons why they have to make some of these tough decisions. And I was just like, this is a personal attack on me. I'm never going to be able to watch this wrestling anymore. And so at the start of '96, I was out, and because there was no internet really available at that time, I had no way of keeping up with what was going on. And so it just dropped. I was out of wrestling completely. And looking back, I realised that what a terrible time for that to happen, because I think the next pay-per-view I would have got to watch would have been the '96 King of the Ring. And
where it all began.
And exactly. So I missed the entire birth of the Attitude Era. And I was out of wrestling, and it was like wrestling didn't exist to me anymore until like late 1999, when it had reached a point where it was culturally huge again, and Channel 4 in the UK picked up, Sunday Night Heat.
And pay-per-view. It was weird. Yeah. I remember watching the Royal Rumble on Channel 4. I was at university. I was like, this is a bizarre way to watch anything.
Well, that was the first one for me. That was the one that got me back in. So I started, to watch the odd episode of Sunday Night Heat. And at the same time, my brother had brought home a PlayStation wrestling game. I think it was WWF Attitude, I think it was called. And to begin with, I wasn't particularly interested. We got the video game on the PlayStation, and the first thing I did when we loaded it up was, I looked at all the options for wrestlers, and I was like, oh, there's that guy in the black pants, or there's that guy in the black pants, or he's got black trousers on, he's more interesting. But it was compared to what it had been in the early 90s, suddenly the colour palette was all, completely toned down. The music had gone into kind of this, heavy metal from the kind of, family-friendly, cheery WrestleMania kind of theme that Linda McMahon still uses. And so it was a completely different product that I didn't recognise. The first thing we did was we got in the Creator Wrestler section, and we, rebuilt, our wrestler for we built a Legion of Doom, and we built a Ultimate Warrior and a Randy Savage. And so we used to just play with them, the characters that we'd made. And bit by bit, watching these episodes of Sunday Night Heat, and then we kind of, oh yeah, actually, no, the Hardy Boys, they're actually quite cool. And, oh, the Dudleys, and oh yeah, the Rockies, he's interesting. He talks a lot. And then I watched the Royal Rumble, the first pay-per-view I got to see after we come back, and I was just blown away. I mean, the product had moved on in ring, so with the tables match that the Hardys and the Dudleys put on, and just the whole presentation and the characters, and so from that point I was completely back in, and I've been pretty much committed to it ever since. I've had a few times over kind of the mid 2000s where I've not been able to watch it weekly because of life reasons and stuff, but I've always kept up with the internet and things and followed what's going on.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely a lifer now.
We all are.
Firmly of the belief that it will come back at some point. It will reach this cultural point again where it's a huge phenomenon, and this time, I got in at the very end of the Hulk Hogan era and missed all of the 80s boom. I got in at the very end of the Attitude era and missed all of that boom. And so, next time it has a boom, I'm in on the ground floor. I'm determined that I'm not going to miss it again. So even if it doesn't happen until I'm 70 years old and I'm completely disapproving of what they're doing.
I don't think it's ever going to have a proper boom again. I've said this before. I think I don't think they're having the boom in the same. I think they're having the boom now. 2019 is going to be their most successful year ever when it comes to profits, even though most people don't like the product. Well, a lot of sort of hardcore fans don't like the product, and TV numbers are down. But I think because financial numbers keep going up, there's no, the reason we had the boom back in the day is because they're about to go out of business, right? Had WCW on their tails, and they were like, it was almost like being backed in the corner and coming out swinging. I hope you're right, and I hope I'm completely wrong. But my worry has always been that there's no reason for them to kind of shake up what they're doing because they've won. And not only have they won, they're so far ahead of everybody else, with $2 billion TV deals. And, and that's why, I know we talk about this all the time, but it's true. That's why the Roman Reigns experiment can continue to go on because it doesn't really matter what anybody does or if they tune out or, who knows what. They keep making money. Like they posted their Q2 results today and it's their biggest ever quarter in history. So, if you're Vince McMahon and you sat there and shareholders are happy and everyone's going out buying new cars, new coats, new houses, it's like, well, it's business as usual, guys. Let's keep plowing forward. And I hope you're right. I really do. I mean, the funnest time to be a wrestling fan, while actually in hindsight, the Attitude Era was not as good as people said. However, the funnest time to be a wrestling fan was during the Attitude Era because everybody was involved. And if you were the wrestling guy in your school, all of a sudden these people that used to shit all over wrestling wanted to know about it. They'd come up to you and they'd talk about it. It's crazy.
That's it. That's absolutely it. Whereas, for a lot of my time as a wrestling fan, including now, you're kind of in the minority, aren't you? Especially in this country. I'm in my mid-30s, and I'll meet people, and as soon as they hear, you're a wrestling fan, they look at you as if you're a bit weird, and then you always get you do know it's fake, right? As if you're going to answer with, oh
always.
My God, no,
always,
no, thank you for telling me that. I'll never watch again. Why people feel the need to have to tell you that. But yeah, to be in there in a boom when everybody's on the same page, everybody's on the same side. I have to believe it's going to come back to that, I suppose. I guess because I missed it kind of the first time. I was back in time for WrestleMania 17 and things like that. So, I got the best of it, but I missed kind of the build up to it.
I get that, but you could always go back and watch stuff these days as well, which I think.
Oh God, yeah. I watch some of that over and over again.
Yeah, exactly, and I think that's the main. I mean, everyone has a break, and everyone comes back, and I think it's when you come back. That's when you know that you're probably never going to go away again. Or at least that's what I found. And with people that come on this podcast, they all kind of say the same. Like, that's how it happened. And even today, when again a lot of people do not like the product, they still stick with it. And that's a scenario we'll never actually be able to explain. So let's talk about Raw and SmackDown as they happened over the last week. I mean, you've just gone on, about how you got into the product, what you like, what you don't like. I mean, are you enjoying? Just take this week's TV, for example. I think, it's pretty much the same each week in terms of format and the kind of foundations that they use. We are going to talk about Evolution, the all-women's pay-per-view, in a second. But before we get there, just as a more general point of view, are you in? Are you out? Are these one of these people that go on the internet and yell about Roman Reigns? I mean, what's your opinion, the direction that WWE's, gone in?
I generally, I always enjoy watching it. I say I'm sticking with it for life. I think if I genuinely stopped enjoying it, then I would stop watching it. I'm not a complete masochist, but I still enjoy it. I enjoy just the nature of the sport or the entertainment product that it is. I think it's tremendous entertainment, and there's nothing like it. Nothing like wrestling, nothing like WWE necessarily. But no, I generally I watch it each week with a smile on my face. I enjoy I thought Extreme Rules got a lot of criticism online. I thought it was actually a really enjoyable show. And yeah, generally this the Roman Reigns situation is becoming tiresome. But I don't think that's the fault necessarily of Roman himself. Well, it's not the fault really of Roman himself. And I think we're kind of between the company and the bookers and Vince McMahon and the fans. We've kind of reached this sort of impasse where, we're both are kind of butting heads in this intangible position where no one's going to move either way. And that is becoming a little bit tiresome. And when you watch a main event that just, regardless of how good it is in the ring, it's just going to get dumped on by the crowd. I don't enjoy that. And one of the reasons I say I want to see a boom come back is I want to see a main event end where you've got, a babyface champion holding up, the WWE championship, and the crowd's going nuts because that's the thing that they wanted to see.
Yeah, that's why
we're not getting that at the moment.
That's why I like AJ Styles so much, because I think he does. I think he does elicit those reactions, which is, I think, one of the reasons why he's such a lovely figure and such a refreshing figure. I think that's why Daniel Bryan did the same kind of thing, because he was a guy that we wanted to see. Win. But as we're talking about it, and as it ties into this episode of Raw, the main event was Bobby Lashley versus Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns hit a spear, 1, 2, 3. He's now the number one contender for Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam. And it's difficult because there were rumours going around beforehand that we may get a three-way with Bobby Lashley, which I actually thought was kind of interesting. I know that there was this bizarre rumour that they were going to do that and Bobby Lashley was going to win and Hulk Hogan was going to be the guy to raise his hand. I think that actually, mate, if they had done that, I think I'd probably never be able to watch wrestling again. I mean that genuinely. That would have been so forced and just awful on so many levels that I don't think I could have stomached it. But obviously we're not doing that. And at the moment we don't even know what Bobby Lashley's plans for for SummerSlam are. But I will say this, given the last 6 months or 4 months and how ridiculous the situation has been, if they are that set on just, allowing Roman Reigns to become the Universal Champion, don't worry about the fans, don't worry about the story, don't worry. If that's what you want to do, by this stage, you've got to stand by your convictions and you've got to pull the trigger. Like, just let him...
They have to do it, don't
they? He has to win, and he has to win clean, and he probably has to win quite quick, to be honest, because I think otherwise you're going to face another backlash. So, if Brock Lesnar
should have won at WrestleMania, shouldn't he?
Well, he should have done, but
the way they swerved, I can understand why they did it, because for 12 months, everybody was just talking about this is going to be the result of this main event. And by the time they got there, the fans had checked out because they knew what was going to happen, or they knew what was going to happen.
But that's exactly why they should have done it. Like,
exactly, yeah.
Just because the result gets out there, I don't think that's why WWE. I think that's when WWE should double down. If anything, I don't think we need to. You don't. Sometimes I mean this in a positive way. Sometimes you don't need to appease the fan base, and by that I don't mean you don't need to listen to them. Disagree with that entirely. I think they should listen to them more. And in fact, cheap plug, there is a What Culture video coming out soon where I argue that fact and then some. But in that instant, just because everybody knows and everybody expects it, if you're going to do it, if they change their mind completely, that's different. But to do a swerve just to prolong what their plan is regardless, that's just, we get what we got now, right? It's long in the tooth. It feels a little bit stagnant. The Universal title continues to kind of take hit after hit. In the most ridiculous scenario ever, they're playing Brock Lesnar millions of dollars. Now everybody wants him to go away, which is the stupidest booking of all time. So that's why I think it was a mistake. And that's why now we are in unprecedented waters, really, because, again, I don't think this would have happened if the business wasn't doing so well. So just let him win. Let him link quick. Brock can leave for 6 months or a year, however long he wants to go. Even if he does want to come back, I don't know. But he can do all his UFC stuff. And then by the time he comes back, no one is going to remember that. And you can book and treat Brock Lesnar however you want. Because right now, Brock Lesnar does not need to be the Universal Champion. It brings nothing to that belt if it can't be on TV. And Brock Lesnar is Brock Lesnar. So it kind of works for everybody. And then, Roman Reigns can go back into a feud with Bobby Lashley because he beat him at Extreme Rules. Braun Strowman. You can move Samoa Joe over. Kevin Owens. Whatever you want to do. And I actually think that will be good for Raw because just having that figurehead, even if it is Roman Reigns, Universal Champion, on the show week after week is going to feel fresh. It's going to feel original, and then we can just forget all the craziness over the last few weeks. So while the end of Raw was a bit like, oh gosh, it's just par for the course at this point. You have to do it. You've got to take the rough with the smooth, and hopefully, come September we can start looking at something different.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the problem that we've had is that we've just been, especially since WrestleMania, but even building up, we've been in this holding pattern because we know what's going to happen eventually. Roman is going to pin Brock Lesnar, and he's going to win that championship. And they can delay it another 2 years. It doesn't mean that, everybody's still going to know that it's going to happen. And all we're doing at the moment is just treading water. A feud with Braun Strowman, a feud with Bobby Lashley, a feud with whoever is it all feels a little bit inconsequential. And that's not fair, because I think Lashley and Roman together in the ring, I think they put on 2 pretty good matches, and it's a spectacle. I mean, Lashley, he gets a lot of stick for not being a particularly engaging or entertaining performer. I think he's really good. I think he's worth the price of admission. To see him. I mean, he looks every inch a superstar.
Yeah.
And he carries himself like a superstar, and he moves and performs in the ring, like a legitimate fighting machine, and then he looks really good to watch. But they're matches that people aren't that interested, because they know, it's what's happening until we get to the next eventual Roman Reigns coronation. And so they've got to do that, and then once that's done, you've got Reigns as your champion, and as you said, you can bring in Kevin Owens, you can bring in Samoa Joe, you can bring in anybody, Braun Strowman with his money in the bank.
Well, that's my worry. You've touched on it. I mean, my worry is that Braun Strowman is going to cash in at SummerSlam and take it right off Roman Reigns, and that would just be such a bad idea.
And then we just get another Roman chase.
Exactly, which I don't want, because I quite liked, I know they do this from time to time and it never goes anywhere, but I did like on Raw when Roman cut his promo, he came across like he didn't give a shit. And when Roman comes across like that, that's when I see his character blossoming. He says, I don't care if you think I'm shoved down your throats, even like it, or basically shut up. And it's just, it just works. And I much prefer.
He's definitely better in that role.
Yeah, and I get that they're treading water with it at the moment, but I just think they should go all in with it, because he's neither a heel nor a face. I always say this: he is a science experiment. And as we brought up Braun Strowman as well, I mean, Braun Strowman cut a promo. He came out, said, he's going to beat everyone up on his way to the Universal Championship. Kevin Owens came out, and the long and the short of it is they're going to have a match at SummerSlam for the Money in the Bank briefcase. And I actually quite like that, because I was disappointed that while I found it funny and it entertained me no end, I always thought that Strowman should have had a better match at WrestleMania, or at least a bigger match at WrestleMania. But I thought the real interesting thing, and again, I've done a What Culture video about this as well, because it really did sort of take me by surprise, or at least kind of open my eyes to a few things that I didn't even notice WWE's been doing. Before Braun Strowman launched into all of this, and this is how I'm going to tie it into the Evolution pay-per-view, he congratulated the women for their big pay-per-view. Now, that was all over Raw, and I got no problem with that whatsoever. If you're trying to make it a big deal, you should be talking about it every 5 minutes, because that's what makes it feel like a big deal. Perfect example is Braun Strowman threw Kevin Owens off the top of a cage. Raw mentioned it once, and now it meant nothing, which is ridiculous. It's a YouTube click these days, and that's crazy. However, Braun Strowman, and I understand this is proper nerd wrestling, but that's fine. That's what we are. Braun Strowman should, in my opinion, never be mentioning stuff like this, because it does take him out of character. Just in the same way, if The Undertaker had done this 20 years ago, it's not me saying I don't. I think the Evolution, the all-women's pay-per-view is brilliant. It's long overdue. And the more stuff WWE can do like this, the more it makes up for what they've done in the past. And if you need to know what I mean by that, just go and watch anything from the Attitude Era. All of it is unbelievable. So I think that's good, but it doesn't mean... It doesn't have to become all-encompassing. Like, Braun Strowman did not need to say that. And it doesn't really matter to me. Like, I'm a guy in his 30s. I watch wrestling. I genuinely don't actually care. You do whatever you want, and I'm going to get the entertainment, the enjoyment out anyway, because that's how I watch the programming. However, if I put my critical hat on and want to start a discussion, I can absolutely understand why a lot of people would be like, well, why did you have to do that? You're already promoting it over the rest of the show, which is the right thing to do. Why couldn't we have kept it away, from someone like Braun Strowman, who really has more of a character, per se, than most other people on the roster? And I thought that was, if nothing else, interesting or worth a discussion.
Well, I'm going to throw in another point to that, also on wrestling nerdy. He said, I'm looking for, congratulations to all the women involved, especially Alexa Bliss. And Braun Strowman is, he's not clear-cut, but he's occupying a babyface role. He's feuding with heels, and he's getting all the cheers. Yeah,
good point.
And he's saying, the person that he's most excited about seeing and happy for is the biggest female heel on the same roster. Things like that as well. Probably going to make me sound unpopular opinion, but I'm not a huge fan of Braun Strowman.
Interesting. Why not?
Again, nothing against him particularly. I just don't quite get what he is, or he's. How to put it? He's partly. They're portraying him as a babyface, which I suppose they have to, because he's over with the crowd. So as soon as he comes out, whichever alignment they've given to him, he's going to get a massive cheer when he comes out. Probably as a result of the fact that he was one of the people that was put in the way of Roman Reigns, and that kind of got him over by osmosis, really. That they hated Roman, so that it got Braun over because
he was whipping his ass. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, he was there trying to kill Roman, and that's what everybody wanted to do. So suddenly everyone loves Braun Strowman. But I don't. I mean, here having the Money in the Bank, it's interesting. It's kind of novel because rather than taking the kind of sneaky approach of needing to wait till somebody's already had a match and they're exhausted and they're out on their feet, and then he comes in, hits a. I mean, he can stalk them like the monster that he is, and everybody can live in fear of him. But I just don't quite get whether is he the new Undertaker that kind of can exist outside of the championship, as it were.
I think to
as a special attraction. Does he not need it? And then everything about him really should be the monster heel. Even the fact that he tried to kill Kevin Owens last weekend by throwing him off that cage, and then showed absolutely no sign of contrition. So there's nothing really in his presentation like that that's particularly babyface, and yet he is this babyface. And so I find him a little bit hard to play. I suppose this is perhaps because I'm a wrestling fan from the early '90s when everything was a lot more kind of cut and dried and clearly defined. But I just find him a little bit hard to place, and I don't really see him as being the main guy, the figurehead, the one that everyone's going to kind of, the fans can rally around ultimately. It's just, for me, it just doesn't quite. There's something that's not quite fitting there.
My thing with Braun Strowman, I hate to always bring this up, but hey, it's the centerpiece of WWE, so it's always going to be there a little bit. Is that really Roman Reigns got in the way? Because if back in the day, if Braun had received that, I hate the word, but it's the best word, had received that organic reaction from the fans, plans would have changed and he would have been the guy. And you could tell that they did react because at the Elimination Chamber, Braun eliminated everybody apart from Roman Reigns, who then just speared him and got the win. So I do think that hampered him a little bit, and I felt like he was a little bit in limbo at WrestleMania 2, which affected him. But I do like him, and I do think he's got potential. I do enjoy the Kevin Owens feud. I really, really do. But it's just, I think, because his character really, and I mean this in a positive way, it's kind of shallow, right? He's the big guy that kicks your ass. But you can make that work in wrestling. I think he needs to be protected more than others. And I think he should just have one agenda, and I think we should push that agenda. And really, it's just that classic thing of, if I tune into Raw or SmackDown, I want everything you do within those parameters to feel real. It's simple as that, right? So I know it's fake. I know it doesn't matter. However, from an entertainment suspending my disbelief point of view, if Braun Strowman wouldn't say or do it, then make sure Braun Strowman doesn't say or do it. It's just that simple stuff. I get it's old school, whatever, but that's just what I like. That's just what I like from my pro wrestling. But no. I mean, talking about the Evolution pay-per-view, that's how Raw started. I like it. I mean, a few people asked my take on this because a lot of people have went, well, where's the whole men's pay-per-view? It happened in April. It was called the Greatest Royal Rumble.
Greatest Royal Rumble.
I was there. You've had it. So I have no problem with WWE doing new things. I have no problem with WWE pushing women this way. I literally have no problem with it. I think it's good. I'll enjoy the show.
There's also decades of almost entirely exclusively male pay-per-views in the past anyways, so
but exactly, and also
it's about time, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the other thing as well. There are going to be some sort of thought process or lines of thinking that we have to change because people have been conditioned a certain way, and that goes for WWE as well. Because on Raw, we still only had like a couple of women's matches that went 3 minutes and didn't mean anything. They're fine, but I'd much rather they weren't women's segments and they were just segments that featured women. And I'm hoping stuff like the Evolution pay-per-view is positive steps towards that. So we will see what happens. I mean, most of everything else on Raw was putting together the SummerSlam. It looks like it will be the Revival versus Bray Wyatt and Matt Hardy versus the B Team for the Raw Tag Team Championships. Got no problem with that. I like the B Team. They make me laugh. I would prefer it if the Hardy and Wyatt became a bit more crazy. I've said this loads, but if they came a bit more crazy over the next few weeks because they can't win and they want their championships back. Because I just think that differentiates them as a team, and not going all in with it seems nuts to me because you've got two nuts characters.
Well, they're teasing that a little bit as well. I feel that when the B Team beat them this time, Matt Hardy did his that was wonderful, round of applause, and then boot to the gut and a twist of fate and a Sister Abigail. So it's slightly more now of the bitter heel that's lost reaction, which is perhaps opens the door for them, those two embracing more of the dark side and becoming more out there because they're, and especially, I mean, the way I really enjoy the B Team. I think they're a lot of fun to watch, and again, they're somebody that seems to have gotten over, quite organically with the way that, they're entertaining. They're in a spot where they shouldn't really have any success because they're basically jobbers, that are fluking their way to wins. But I think they're actually booking that really well. And so I'm liking it. I like the Revival, more than either of them. I hope they go on to win that match, and then feature much more heavily on Raw than they have been doing as the dominant champion team. But as it's going, I think the B team are very entertaining, and there is a chance that they are looking to kind of push this, woken, broken, extreme version of Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt.
I hope they do, because I think eventually you can split them up and have an awesome feud. But I don't want that to happen until they've gone proper crazy. I don't want there to be a ceiling for this. I want it to be my variety, my pacing of the show. What are they going to do this week kind of thing. And I don't think we've really tapped into that too much at the moment. But I think we have an opportunity to do it here.
It's all been a little bit dilute, hasn't it? A little bit, especially the Matt Hardy woken instead. It's all been a little bit...
I think it's exactly what a lot of people worried it would be. And I actually thought at one stage they'd just build it slowly, but now they're kind of just falling into a pattern with it, which is fine. But I think maybe it's good to take a step back and be aware of it and maybe try and change things up if we can. I don't think that would be the worst thing in the world by any stretch of the imagination.
I think they missed a little bit of a trick when the Hardys first returned at that WrestleMania a couple of years ago, the surprise return, that for me, if I was booking, and maybe they didn't because they didn't think they'd ever come to a settlement over whether they could use the trademark at all. But if it was me, I would have completely gone away from any of the broken stuff, Matt Hardy came out straight away, white streak in his crazy hair, doing the delete gesture. And I think what I would have done is I would have booked them as the Hardy Boys of old, come out as if none of that had ever happened, and then started to slowly kind of drop in the teases that this might come in, rather than going straight away with it's the Hardys. At some point they're going to go broken. Because of that, it's always been just a little bit, for me, it's been a little bit below par, or a little bit kind of, not quite as intense or quite as exciting as it could be the way that they've been booking them.
I think it's fair. I mean, talking about Jeff Hardy as well as he's come up, I will say over on SmackDown, I love what they're doing. I absolutely love the Randy Orton. I mean, basically, Randy Orton came out, cut a promo where he insulted the Young Bucks and said that, the fans don't respect him because he doesn't work in bingo halls or, he hasn't stolen any sweet hand gestures, and he did the 2 sweet signs. I will say, I agree with Dave Belcher on this. I listened to the Wrestling Observer podcast earlier. I do agree with the fact that bingo hall references in 2018 are a bit ridiculous. I get that's the working term, but no, I really like the idea of a feud between Orton, Nakamura, and Jeff Hardy. I think for the US title especially, I think that's awesome on paper. And yeah, I mean, to be honest, I thought SmackDown this week was fantastic all around, which we'll get to in a second. But before we leave Raw, I do feel like we have to talk about Sasha Banks versus Bayley. All the rest is kind of standard stuff for Raw, but yeah, I cannot believe, and I'm a positive dude, right? I love pro wrestling. I'll always watch it, and I'll always watch it with a smile on my face, but I cannot believe that for about the 12th time, they've gone back on the Sasha Banks Bayley turn. They're actually a team again. It's almost like they think we don't remember this stuff. How are we meant to buy in? I just don't get it.
I think what they've done, they want to split them up, and they want to have them feud, and they want.
But they've done that. They've done it like 40 times.
That they can do. But they want the crowd to be invested into it with one of the. Well, this is my theory anyway. If you go back, and as I said before, I'm a big NXT fan, and I love the Sasha Banks Bayley feud that they did in NXT when Sasha was the big badass heel, and Bayley was the underdog babyface. That dynamic between them worked really well. Having Bayley as the heel and Sasha as the face, for me, that's not going to work. But the problem that they've had because they've teased it, whenever one of them's turned on the other, and whether it was Sasha backstage throwing Bayley into all those crates, the crowd are cheering that because they want to see the split, and then so they step back from that. And then a little bit later on, a few weeks ago, when Bayley turned and she started beating up Sasha and he properly went for it and kicking her when she's down, swearing at her and all that, it was not what you would expect from the Bayley character. But the crowd are cheering it. They're going, and so they've tried to do her as the heel, and the crowd. And what they want, I think, is that they want to have a feud that's kind of in the traditional sense, where you've got the baby face that they want to win and the heel that they want to see get beaten up. And so what they're doing now is they're trying to get everybody, again for the millionth time, invested into the relationship with Bayley and Sasha. So you look at the one true heel that they've got, in all of their, WWE's umbrella is Tommaso Ciampa. And
Samoa Joe as well. I think Samoa Joe comes up in that category.
Yeah, actually, yeah. But even that. Joe comes out and everyone's cheering, Joe to his theme tune.
True.
He did at the end of SmackDown. He did the, it'll be phenomenal, and he kind of did his AJ Styles impression. And again, the crowd cheer. They cheer because he's a wonderful performer. But I always think that, this is a whole different topic, but I think that slightly undermines the heel if the crowd are cheering for them. But so what they want with Sasha and Bayley is they want somebody to go Ciampa and just for the crowd to hate them because they're the one that has split up this relationship. And so now they're bringing in, they've loved each other forever, and they're closer than friends. They're like sisters, and, to try to get everybody really in. And it's it will either work or it won't. And my suspicion is people probably will see through it because we've been there so many times. But I think that's what the effort is to make everybody believe this is a really close bond. And then when somebody does break it, then that makes them the monster heel. And hopefully it'll be Sasha Banks, because I really don't buy Bayley as the heel.
Yeah, the thing for me is, I just don't care about it anymore. I can't buy in or care for something that, changes that often. It's just ridiculous. I feel like I'm in a time machine and I'm going back in time constantly. But the other real problem is that Bayley has felt so restrained and held back for so long that when she did unleash and she got that reaction from the crowd, whether they wanted her to be a whole or not, I don't care. She had fire and she had an edge to her as well, and I think that's what she was missing. So to, absolutely stay away from that was just nuts. It was just absolutely nuts. And I don't know whether this is going to end with them turning on each other again or something like that. But either way, this angle was one angle too far. And
it has to end with them turning on each other in the end. They can't
do that now, though. If they do that now, I'm just going to roll my eyes and go, you cannot do this again. That's the problem. Now they've backed themselves into a corner where it's a lose-lose. They really should have gone with it after... after Bayley did all that crazy beat up stuff. That was the time to do it, and I genuinely can't believe they someone backstage said, we get back together again, and not even sort of unwillingly. They're now like, oh yeah, we're friends. What are you talking about?
They had 2 weeks of friendship counselling. That counts for something.
Oh my gosh, that was so bad. And I like segments like that. I don't mind WWE doing stuff like that.
That Dr. Shelby's good.
Oh, yeah, he is. Yeah, pay him double. But I honestly don't mind. I like the pacing of the show. I like them doing different things, but that was just bad. There's no point pretending otherwise. It was not entertaining in any sense whatsoever. But yeah,
I think I see the point to it. I think if you imagine those two now, they stay together. Maybe they go through the Evolution pay-per-view, win a women's tag team championship that might be created around that time, and have a long run with that, and then a couple of years down the line, or maybe they don't win the championship, but they're chasing the championship against a heel team. Very much again like the DIY kind of model. I suspect that's what they're trying to follow, and hoping to elicit that reaction when they eventually do split them up.
Well, if it does tie into that, and maybe that's what the Evolution... Maybe they just thought we need to extend this out to the Evolution pay-per-view, because they will have a good match, but I will not be invested, because I think the whole thing is absolutely ridiculous. It's just crazy. And talk about SmackDown quickly as well. The other two things I wanted to touch on there was the finish to the show. I thought it was great. A lot of people are now shitting on it. I thought it was excellent. The whole show, Miz teased that he was going to go out there with his... with his baby, which he did. Then Daniel Bryan eventually came out to take him on, and he threw his baby at him. And I just thought it was awesome. It turned out to be a fake baby, distracted Daniel Bryan, gives him the skull crushing finale, and legs it out of there. I just thought it was a great way to kind of restart that feud. I loved it. I thought it was funny and in the right way that it should have been. It was different, which I always appreciate in WWE. I'm always up for them doing something I haven't seen before. I've never seen that, regardless of this happened or not. I like Daniel Bryan, I like The Miz. I just thought it ticked every box.
Yeah, well, that's another. That's a feud that eventually we want to see come to a head.
Got to be at SummerSlam,
But they've done a good job with that one, really, because it's been on the back burner. It's been there, and then it's been in the back, and then they've gone off and they've done other things. But it's always been, when they've had an opportunity to, they've still thrown in a reference to the fact that they don't like each other. So they've never completely forgotten about it. So it's always there. So that's one that really is. It's a long-term build. And I think they do. I loved, again, what they did, same as you said, with the end of SmackDown. I like the fact that we've got to a stage in WWE wrestling that, 20 years ago in the height of the Attitude Era, he probably would have thrown that baby, and then no one would have made any reference to the fact that it was just a doll. We'd have probably been left to believe that it was a real baby that they'd. So I kind of like the fact that we've gone to a slightly more sane and sanitized product in that sense. But it was still a moment for the to pop the crowd. So I thought it worked really well.
No, I did. I just enjoyed it. I thought it was different. I thought it was a great way to get that feud kicking off again. I also wanted to point out, on ups and downs, I gave a down to Andrade Cien Almas versus Rusev because Rusev lost. I think people misunderstood. I just love Rusev. So if Rusev loses, he gets a down. But in terms of Rusev and Almas having a feud, I think that's awesome because Almas can be the heel, sorry. We can slowly turn Rusev face, I hope, finally, long overdue, and then have really good matches. I got no problem with that. I got no problem with that whatsoever. So I just wanted to point that. And also, it got confirmed that, yes, as we mentioned, Samoa Joe is going to be the number one contender at SummerSlam against AJ Styles, which I think is wonderful. Because if you followed both of their careers for, way back in 2007, they were having 5-star matches with Christopher Daniels in TNA, and now they're about to headline, or at least one of the headliners, whatever you want to call it, one of the second biggest pay-per-view of the year in WWE. I just think that's great. I think it's a lovely story. They'll tear it up. They'll probably have better matches than Nakamura and Styles have. I think that's just what my gut says. I like it all around. I like the feud. I think Joe will be awesome. Styles is great. I think eventually we will be able to sort of fall into the good guy, bad guy routine pretty easily. Yeah, I just thought this was wonderful.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of both of theirs. So I'm very much looking forward to that match as well. And I'm happy that that's the decision that they've made, that Samoa Joe is the next. I was, as you mentioned many times on the podcast, I'm in agreement. They should have given, at some point, they should have put the championship on Nakamura, after he turned heel.
Yeah, just to justify, yeah.
He should have had a run with that title. But the fact that they've not done, I'm glad that they're not continuing that feud. I'm glad that they've moved on to separate things. And Joe, I think, is the right man to now be, the SmackDown main event.
I think he should win it. I'm saying it now. I'll make a call nearer to the show. But in terms of what I think should happen, I think he should win it.
I agree. I think it's I suppose it's classic booking 101. It's a babyface that's chasing. In many ways, is more interesting than a babyface that's defending, and a heel that's defending, and a heel that's lording it over everybody and abusing their power as champion. In many ways, is more interesting than a heel that's chasing. So, I would quite happily see Samoa Joe. The one thing that disappoints me is that it's the secondary championship in WWE. Really, the Universal title is the big one.
That's Raw and SmackDown, isn't it? I mean, We'll see what happens when they move to Fox next year. But that will always be the way. The whatever's on Raw will always be the number one championship. It just will, unless it changes because of the ratings they may get on Fox. But it's still cool. It's still cool. I still like it.
Yeah, it will still be a great. And on the Rusev point, Rusev and Andrade, I thought great match. I'd quite like to see a feud with them continue. They're quite similar in this. I mean, there was one point when they were both lying about kind of their outfits and their beards and everything. I wasn't quite sure which one was which. But I don't mean they're similar in that way. The way that they've got Lana and Zelina Vega in kind of similar positions, so they make quite a good complement for each other. I think I'd pull the trigger fully on a Rusev babyface turn. Now, I do think he has a higher ceiling as a heel overall, but the time is right now. Well, the time has been right for a long time with Rusev Day and everything to pull the trigger on a full face turn for Rusev and let him run with it and see what he can do.
I think what you say as well, I like the idea of Lana and Vega having a little thing, compared to what Rusev and Andrade. I think that would just benefit everybody. So that's all I meant. But if Rusev loses, it gets a down. Simple as that. That's how I live my life, people. And it's always going to be that way. If Rusev loses, it gets a down. Also on SmackDown, James Ellsworth got fired. He wasn't working on a contract anyway. And Becky Lynch became number one contender for the SmackDown Women's title. And she will face Carmella at the event, which I like too. I like all of that. That feels long overdue. But I like Becky Lynch. She just comes across as the best babyface. I don't know how anyone can hate Becky Lynch. Even her Instagram stories are funny. Like she's just a good babyface. That's all it is.
No, she's great. She's a fantastic in-ring performer as well. I'm sure when I first started watching NXT, when we first got the network, Becky Lynch in NXT, I'm sure she was a heel to start with, and she had, when I first started watching NXT, and she had a match with, I think it was just on TV, with one of the, I think it was with Charlotte. I might be wrong. I think it was with Charlotte, and it was a fantastic match, and she lost. And after Charlotte had gone, she was left in the ring, and although she was the heel, the crowd started singing her theme music to salute her as she left, and she became a babyface kind of instantly after that.
Yeah.
I mean, I may have my alignment wrong, but that's the first time I really remember seeing that kind of thing happen, where just, since Eddie Guerrero and Edge had an amazing ladder match about 15 years ago, when Eddie was given a standing ovation after losing. But since then, that's the first time I really had witnessed that a performer had done so well in the ring that they'd won the crowd, Rocky IV style, they'd won the crowd over. And so, ever since that moment, I've always, of the four horsewomen, Sasha Banks as a heel is my favourite. I think she is the one that could be
I can't believe
top woman in WWE.
That she's never had a heel run on
Becky
Raw.
Is my other favourite of those four.
Yeah, I can't believe Sasha Banks never had a heel run on the main roster. I think it's bonkers, to say the least.
I think the biggest problem that she has is that Alexa Bliss is now playing pretty much her character, and is knocking it out of the park as well. I think that's why they're kind of a bit cold on throwing in the boss character, because it's very similar to what Alexa's doing.
I'd move it to SmackDown then. If that's where she's going to shine and do the best, I don't know why you'd hold back on that. I find it absolutely crazy. I really, really do. Because as a babyface, I think she's limited. I think she, I think as shown, I think she's hit a ceiling and she can't really tap into whatever it is inside of her, because that's not who she is. I don't know.
Well, it's the classic thing, isn't it? I'm not saying that she's an unpleasant person. I don't know if she might be lovely, but they always say that the best wrestling characters are yourself turned up to 11, and she seems more natural in that, the actions that she kind of carries out as and just the way she carries herself, and when she comes down to the ring, she's got those sunglasses. As a babyface, she kind of, Bret Hart style, she gives them to a fan, and whereas as a heel, she just kind of tosses them away like they don't matter. Yeah, that kind of thing just looks more natural, looks more it, and just those tiny little nuances in the presentation for me mean that she works better as a heel.
Yep, I agree. I would turn her heel. I'd have Becky Lynch superface, have Bayley superface, and I'd have Charlotte heel. I'd move them all around to make that work. I think it makes the women's division stronger.
Charlotte as well is a better. I mean, she works in both capacities, but I think Charlotte as well.
Yeah,
certainly is a better heel.
Yeah, I totally agree. So that's pretty much Raw and SmackDown. I know we missed out on Extreme Rules from a couple of weeks ago, but I think it's what happened. It was a decent enough pay-per-view. You can go watch my ups and downs on that on What Culture if you want to get my take on it. But yeah, I didn't hate it as much as other people did. I thought it was fine. I'm looking forward to SummerSlam. I think it's going to be really good. I think NXT the night before is going to be awesome. Just on that note, spoilers if you don't know, Ciampa is now your NXT champion in just a phenomenal match with an awesome finish that you should probably go and check out if you have 10 or so minutes. And yeah, it's set up a three-way for that NXT TakeOver event, which is probably going to be the best match of that weekend. That or Samoa Joe, AJ Styles will be the ones I put my money on. So we will see what happens with that. But yeah, I think SummerSlam's shaping. I'm excited about SummerSlam. I think WWE know they want to turn it into a summer WrestleMania. It's basically they're going to make more money off of it. And the only way to do that is create buzz. You create buzz with good matches. So that is what I think they're going to try and achieve. And I know we've got a few weeks to go, and booking can sometimes be too long in the tooth. I mean, as I say, this is still 1, 2, 3.5 weeks, which is a long time. But I think we'll do well with it. That's my gut feeling anyway.
No, I think so. I think it will be shaping up to be good. The only problem there's a few rematches on there. I would have thought it would have been better to get Becky Lynch into the number one contendership without just doing the same match that they're going to do, the same one-on-one they're going to do, but have her win in a non-title. If they could have come up with another, because you'd like to go into your pay-per-view and see a match that you've not seen before or you've not seen for a long time before. But that's just splitting hairs. It's it's still the match that we want to see, or I want to see. So it is shaping up well. Yeah, and TakeOver will be amazing.
Yeah, no, it will be. I think as long as Becky Lynch wins, I don't mind. If she doesn't win, then I'll question it. If you're not a member of Simon Miller's Pro Wrestling Podcast Facebook group, I would encourage you to go join, sign up, hit a like, and you can come join the ever-growing group, which I always love. As you may, or you probably do know if you're a regular listener, we usually do a Q&A episode in the week, but tomorrow I have to go to hospital to finally figure out what's going to happen with my shoulder, so I promise we do a bumper episode and ask for some questions, and that's where you do ask questions, so that's what we're going to do now. We're just going to run through them as quickly as we can, and that's that. Nice and simple. So, Bradley Luke. On WWE 2K18, Chad Gable, Finn Balor, and Xavier Woods are listed as cruiserweights. If you had to pick one to go down to 205 Live and be the champion, who would you pick? Well, based on the current lay of the land, I'd pick Chad Gable. Because while Finn Balor's not necessarily being used to his potential, he's still got a spot. I mean, Xavier Woods and the New Day are like bulletproof at the moment anyway. Whereas Chad Gable just turns up every week and gets yelled at, basically. He doesn't do anything, and then he pops up on Superstars or whatever the stupid show's called. So if you're going to make him the champ and push him, I mean, absolutely Chad Gable. He'd be great. He's a great wrestler. He'd actually have a spotlight. I don't think there's much of an argument there for me.
No, I would have to agree. Finn Balor he's a cruiserweight, or he's the size of a cruiserweight, but he's basically a main eventer, isn't he, in the heavyweight scene already. They don't really reference the fact that he's a cruiser. I think they've even stopped announcing his weight when he comes out to try and distance him a little bit from the cruiserweights. Xavier Woods, I mean, you could, if you wanted to separate the New Day out into put Big E into the championship picture, you could maybe put Xavier Woods, keep the New Day under their sort of umbrella, but I think Chad Gable is the appropriate one, or the right one to do that with. Yeah,
I just think he needs something. He feels wasted to me, Chad Gable, which Dave Meltzer also says. If Dave Meltzer says it, it must be true. That will one.
He could have some incredible matches with some cruiserweights as well.
It really could. 205 Live is good. I know it doesn't have any traction. In fact, both they kind of suffer from the same thing. That and Impact at the moment, both are really, really good shows. They just don't have much buzz because even though the people watching them are really excited about them, it's not really getting much traction. You know, not a lot of people are talking about it, and so on and so forth.
Well, the problem is, as I said at the start, you have to. Well, a lot of people have to pick and choose what they can watch, and 205, because it started quite poorly, or without the momentum that it started to develop. That was always the one that I'll watch that if I can, but it's the one that kind of dropped off. And then I think that's the case for a lot of people. You've never really got into it in the first place.
Well, that's it, and it's like judge a book by its cover, right? They think it's got a stigma now, so they'll stop watching. But yeah, I put Chad Gable on it, absolutely. Richard Lee Breslin, hope you have a speedy and full recovery. Well, that's very nice. That's in reference to my shoulder injury, so I appreciate it. Garth Jackson, if you could turn your injury into a storyline to make something positive come of it, how would you book it within Defiant? Well, Garth, all I'm going to say is this. I've been watching wrestling for 30 years. I understand that you can extract a positive from anything. Make sure you're watching Stacked. That's all I'm going to say, and we'll move on. Tristan Dan Whitcomb, hope you recover quickly. That's very nice too. There's a lot of well wishes here. I don't want to. I mean, they mean the world to me, but I understand people listening may be like, Simon, we don't want to hear about your well wishes. So I will say thank you very much to everybody who's. I mean, just in general, the amount of love and. I mean, there's been some negative assholes as well that have called me injury prone. That I should quit. Those guys can kiss my ass. They're people that sit in their basements don't do anything with their lives, so they can fuck right.
I've seen some of that on there. I think that's just people that they're trolling out there. They probably don't even believe that. They just want, I know why.
Of course, the new one today was, he didn't fall properly. Well, even if that is the case, which it's not, but even if it was the case, the bone broke on impact of his arm hitting my shoulder. So
he didn't fall onto his arm properly.
Well, exactly, yeah. So it was already broken by the time I hit the floor. Like, that's just the way of it. And anyway, we don't focus on trolls. But yes, thank you to everyone with the nice messages. I really do appreciate it. Neil S. Bolt, who is wrestling's best heel right now? Personally, I feel New Japan has two great divisive examples in Jay White and Tama Tonga. Well, we mentioned Ciampa earlier. I think we've got to throw him in there as well. I think that's only fair. I think Jay White and Tama Tonga are awesome. Who else? Who else do I think is a really, really good heel that people actually hate? There's not that many anymore. It's certainly not a big list, which I guess you could argue is kind of the problem. I don't know. You got any, Steve?
I watch wrestling in almost entirely in the WWE sphere. So, the one that stands out, at the top of your list is Ciampa. The reactions that he's getting. That guy from the Takeover the other week that's shouting, "You're the devil, Ciampa." I don't know if he was a plant or if he was someone that just believes it's so real still. But there isn't anybody else, certainly in WWE, that's getting anything like that kind of a reaction. And he is doing so well in his social media activity.
Oh man.
It's pumping that up as well.
It's such a hard thing because I would never impose that wrestlers should have to be in character on social media. I'd prefer it if they were, but I would never impose it because I just think that's nuts. What world are we living in where, you can't put chains on people? Again, I would prefer it as a fan, but I completely understand why it can't necessarily be a thing. However, when people do it right, such as Ciampa does, that's when you start going, this is why it works so well. This is why it works so well. This is brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant.
It's a dangerous line to tread, though, isn't it? Because Baron Corbin was doing fine, and then he went slightly too far with it and supposedly that's what killed the push.
Yeah, you're working for a corporate company. Never forget that. If you ever make it WWE, you're working for a corporate company, not a wrestling company. Never forget it. James Hunt, since you started your training as a wrestler, has your opinion of another wrestler changed? For instance, somebody you thought was good actually isn't as good as you thought, or more interestingly, someone you thought was bad you now think is pretty darn good. Well, actually, this ties into something I wanted to mention as well. I will take umbrage with this, because a lot of people have been going, oh, look, the guy can't take criticism. He criticises everyone. No, I don't. I've never criticised anybody for their in-ring performance, because I don't think that... I just wouldn't. I just wouldn't do that. I think wrestling is really hard. And I've said this in countless videos, but people obviously will always choose to ignore that when they want to make a ridiculous point. But I would never do it. And that's why I've always thought any wrestler, and I'm talking about any wrestler, even Dana Brooke, who I know is not the greatest in the world and makes mistakes, but she still has got to a point, you know, where she's on a grand stage and we know who she was, and I'm sure she's put in loads of times and hours. So no, I don't actually look at wrestlers like that. I think anybody that's wrestling right now, I mean, some people are better than others, of course. I've been blessed enough to be in the ring with Doug Williams and recently Nathan Cruz, and, you know, straight away you realise why these guys are so good. Like, you can, it's just the way they treat the match, and they do it so effortlessly. So no, I don't think I've certainly, people that I thought were good, I've realised how good they are, but no, not the other way. There's no one I thought, they're shit now. No one's shit in wrestling, and you can poo-poo over that all you want, but, you know, that's just how I see it.
We all do it as fans, as viewers. We all, criticising is perhaps the wrong word. We all critique it. Everybody watches it with a sense of, that's what I like that, I don't like that, that's entertaining, that's not entertaining. You can't get away from that. And you know, if you're somebody that goes on the internet and puts videos up that say, this is what happened this week, or puts podcasts out, so this is what happens this week, these were the bits that were good. You can't get away from critiquing it. But I think people sometimes get carried away with that idea and think, actually, if you're saying that wasn't a particularly good match, or that angle's not good, or that story's good, that then by extension of that, you're saying that performer is not good, which isn't really the case, is it?
No, I agree. And I like I say, I am all up for internet criticism. You can critique me, you can critique The Rock, Roman Reigns, whatever. I don't care. You say whatever you want. But I think there's ways and means to do it. But you do it however you feel right. But yeah, I think there's anything wrong with criticising a segment. But I personally would never criticise a wrestler. Just wouldn't. But that doesn't mean that you can't. You can do whatever you want. Doug Searle. A few wrestlers have used injuries as gimmicks when they come back, such as The Undertaker wearing that weird mask or Ciampa and the crutch. What is your favourite? Easy. D'Lo Brown's chest protector. I mean, I don't think that tied into a real injury. I love that thing. In hindsight, people seem to hate it. I always loved it. I thought it was awesome. I just thought it was so dumb. But yeah, that's 100% mine. I love that. Not even close. That's my favourite.
Cody Rhodes' mask.
Yeah, that works too, because he tied it to his gimmick, right?
It looked horrible to actually wear and wrestle in, just having that thing on you. But yeah, I mean, it was like, he reminded me of a little bit of some kind of twisted villain out of a horror movie. With the way he was protecting this kind of perfect face of his, and yeah, perfectly fit in the game. I don't think they pushed it far enough, to be honest. I think they abandoned it a little bit sooner than really. But then that's kind of the story of Cody.
Exactly, yeah. But literally took the words out of my mouth. That was just Cody Rhodes in WWE. Well, apart from Stardust, why aren't we pushing any of this stuff, to the point that we should? But he's done all right now. He's doing all right now. That's the main thing. Where are we? Marceline Adams, good name. It's just you being very nice about my injury. Thank you. And also saying, if I got a broken collarbone, it would make me consider a change in career. So I was wondering how bad an injury would have to be to make you consider stopping the in-ring action. Not that any of us wanted to happen, mind you. That's very kind. Well, this certainly won't, because I feel like when you injure yourself once and you don't go back, that's regret material, because you'll go, well, I'll never know. If you then get injured again, then I think you can start questioning it, or at least trying to figure out, because it may not be your fault, right? You may just have been very, very unlucky, and you could be unlucky again. You may just be a very unlucky human being. But I think for me, it would have to be, like, nothing that happened, as awful as it was life-threatening. If anything life-threatening happened, I think you did have to question it, because then that's what the risk is. If that happens, then you have to, am I willing to risk my life for this? Probably, arguably not. But something like this, where it's like, am I willing to go through rehab, pain, potential surgery, blah, blah, blah? The answer is yes, I am willing to do that. So, yeah, I think that's where the line is for me. But I'm just happy at the moment to take it day by day and see where we get to down the line. So, yeah, we'll see. Luke Robinson, in your opinion, Hiroshi Tanahashi or John Cena? Who's more of an influence, being the figurehead of their companies over the last 10, 15 years of them at the top? Well, I mean, no one's going to agree with this and get mad. I mean, Tanahashi is a is a flag bearer for Japanese wrestling, and what he's been able to achieve over the last 2 decades. A lot of it I've only just got to over the last couple of years myself, has been incredible. Because John Cena worked in the WWE, and because, you know, for a while there, New Japan was not as big as it was today, and WWE was huge, I think John Cena has got to be considered that guy. Because WWE went through some awful times over the last 15 years, and really, one of the reasons they kind of kept their head above what was because of what happened with John Cena. They needed a bona fide superstar, and they got one, whereas New Japan was struggling anyway, and it's only really been the last sort of 3, 4, 5 years, potentially, they've actually got back to where they would consider they should be. So, I mean, just given the scales, I would probably say John Cena.
I can only answer that one. I only have experience of watching a wrestling company with John Cena as the main.
But man, I think that answer's fair. I think that kind of proves that point a little bit more, because a lot of wrestling fans will say that, and that's the point. That's the point. Yeah. WWE's just a bigger company. It just is.
He's somebody as well that I think we will judge him. We collectively, wrestling fandom, will judge him more kindly once he's gone. Yeah, I know he's starting to fade away, but when you look back at his ability on the microphone, and actually his ability in the ring, that is often underrated. He puts together some. I mean, it's no surprise or no coincidence that he's got one of WWE's 5-star matches. He's a much better performer than people often give him credit for, and I think so. We'll miss him very much when he finally does hang up his boots.
I agree. I totally agree. I've always liked John Cena. Admittedly, there's a time there when it was too much, but in hindsight, I'm all good with it. I really like him. Nick Palmer, 2 injuries in 4 to 5 matches. Is this accidents happening, or the new kid must be hazed? I'll answer this as diplomatically as I can. For starters, I've said this on my What Culture video that went up today that you can go and watch. I posted it in the Facebook group. I don't consider the first one an injury, because if I hit anybody, including my friend Steve here, in the back of the head with a steel chair, there's a very high percentage he's going to bleed. That's what happens. So I don't really think that's just a freak accident. This one, I mean, if you were going to say to me, do I think that I got hit a little bit too hard? I would say yes. Do I think that some of that may be tied into the fact that I'm new? Yes, would be my answers. But I'm also happy to say that this is wrestling, and I'm tougher than that. I'll leave it there. My man Adam Pearson, who's always very nice. Now that James Ellsworth has been fired, who do you think the title contenders will be at WWE Evolution? That's a very good question. What will the title contenders be at WWE Evolution?
Who will the champions be at Evolution?
Yeah, that's the thing. I think... Oh, man, it's October. I think Becky Lynch is going to be champion. So I can see a rematch with Carmella there. Maybe you get Asuka involved too. I could see that. On the Raw side of things, I mean, Ronda Rousey, I imagine, will also be champion by that stage. Because I think if you're doing an all-women's pay-per-view... Well, there's 2 things, right? You either want her to win it there, or you want her to go in as champion. It's one of those 2. So it all maybe Alexa Bliss gets through SummerSlam, and then she goes on to face Ronda Rousey, and Ronda Rousey wins at the All. That's probably what's going to happen. It's a better headline. First ever women's pay-per-view, Ronda Rousey wins title. I imagine that's going to happen. I imagine that's a huge reason why they're doing it. So yeah, I would go Carmella, Asuka, and Lynch on SmackDown, and probably Alexa, because they've got so many women to get on that show. I'd probably say you'll probably get Alexa, Nia, and Ronda Rousey in the one. So maybe 2 triple threats, or maybe get rid of Nia Jax in that scenario. But yeah, something like that.
I have a feeling they'll keep Nia Jax around in the main events because she's so different to the other performers.
Exactly. And also she can protect Ronda Rousey, right?
Yeah.
So I think they're going to do that. But so I'll say this: coming out of that event, I think Ronda Rousey is champion and Becky Lynch is champion. That's what I'm going to say right now, right here on this podcast.
I would agree 100% with Ronda Rousey. Becky Lynch, I would like to see that. I think they might put the belt possibly back onto Asuka, or put the belt onto Asuka at that pay-per-view, maybe. That one's tougher to call. That one's more of a 50-50.
Yeah, I think so. Atman Deep, speedy recovery, my friend. Thank you. How far do you think we are from a cross-promotion of WWE and Ring of Honor in terms of main roster talent? Triple H seems to be open to the idea, and after Vince takes on the XFL project, may it become possible? Omega versus Cena. I love your optimism. It will never happen. Because if WWE ever did that, they gain nothing, and Ring of Honor gain everything, and that's why they won't do it. They want to kill these things. They don't, they want to eat them up alive. Like the whole Madison Square Garden thing that happened recently was because WWE tried to stomp out Ring of Honor, but then they fell into legal trouble. So it was like, oh right, we would just have to let them go ahead with it. So I love your optimism, but they won't do it. If anything, they'll kill Ring of Honor and just suck up all their talent.
if it's going to happen, it's going to happen in the post Vince McMahon days that nobody perhaps wants to talk about, but everybody knows is coming eventually. But as it stands, Vince wants the monopoly. He doesn't want the competition. That's why he's launching a UK brand as soon as there was a sniff of World of Sport coming back. And he signed up half of the World of Sport competitors to his brand there. He would do this. And if they did do a cross promotion, as you say, all that would happen, it would benefit Ring of Honor or whoever the smaller promotion was for a time because they get the exposure. But then, as soon as anybody kind of gained any traction, you have to expect that the greater money and the greater lure of a WWE stage, they'd be cherry picked one by one, and to eventually kill that promotion or keep that promotion down. There's no way that another promotion is going to be elevated. I don't think.
They just won't do it. They can't do it. They can't. I don't think Triple H will do it either. He's fed from the Vince McMahon tree or whatever. So I just can't see it happening. William P. Coppola III, always the best name. Every time an NXT superstar is called up, I'm always afraid they won't get over or WWE will end up having nothing for them. What current NXT stars that will eventually be built up do you feel will suffer the same fate as many of the others? Velveteen Dream is mine. I think Vince McMahon would like Velveteen Dream because he's crazy and he's got a gimmick. So I actually think that he may actually be okay. My worry is for things like Ciampa and Gargano because they're not big dudes. And I worry that when Vince sees them, that's going to be the first thing he reacts to. So that's my biggest worry. Otherwise, look, the good news at the moment is Andrade seemed like he'd been killed, but now he's actually getting some traction and it seems like he's going to get a push. So you just never know. I'd say keep the faith, but I completely understand your worry as well, yes.
Yeah, I think the one that comes to mind immediately that's currently on fire in NXT for me is Shayna Baszler, because she's unique in NXT, but as soon as she comes up to the main roster, then she's just going to be overshadowed by Ronda Rousey because she's Ronda Rousey's less famous, less successful mate. So she's the one that I think that even if they put them into a feud, then I think that she's going to reach a ceiling there probably, and they'll struggle to find a way to make her as unique and as relevant on the main roster as they're doing down on NXT. I do think as a general thing on NXT, I think the expectation that we have of guys when they come up from NXT to the main roster is probably skewed by the way NXT works. So whenever somebody comes up, they come up from being the champion, whether it's Sami Zayn or Kevin Owens or Finn Balor or Samoa Joe. They've been the one in the spotlight, the main man, the promotion's been revolved around for their little bit of the cycle until they've had their feud, they've had the championship, they've lost the championship, and they've been and then when they come up to the main roster, we kind of say this is the man, this is the and then there isn't a spot there for them to be the main man again because there's already Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins and John Cena and AJ Styles, and so they go into a pretty good position, and a lot of them are used very well, but they just can't be used in the same way. And I think we often see, and I've done it myself, I've looked at somebody that's come up like Kevin Owens, for example. I think Kevin Owens is a fantastic performer, but I would love to see him going back to being NXT Kevin Owens, where he's like another Brock Lesnar character. He's a ruthless, ass-kicking, fighting machine, and not a sneaky, snivelly, cowardly heel.
Yeah,
but
WWE does love that.
But there isn't a spot for him to be that guy because that guy is currently Brock Lesnar and now Braun Strowman. So they've got him in a role, and they've got him in a role that he's doing very well, and he's held championships and things, but it's not the role that we kind of, I built him up to being. So I think that's why we see a lot of NXT call-ups come up as failures or seem to fail when they first come up. And it's perhaps not quite accurate. It's just it's a perception thing.
I agree. I get it. Also, it's a flip of a coin. It all depends on the mood Vince McMahon's in, and if he looks at you, what he thinks of you. That's it. That's it. Right, one more, just because. Aiden O'Connell, who would you have as Raw Tag Team Champions, and who would you have as SmackDown Tag Team Champions? There's quality teams like AOP and The Revival on Raw, and SmackDown Live with the Usos and The Bar. I'm actually quite happy with the B Team being champions for now. I like it when something kind of gets over a little bit and we go with it. So... yeah, I got no problem with that. Obviously, Revival down the line I think would be good. Same with Authors of Pain if they can book them right. Over on SmackDown, I just want the Bludgeon Brothers to be used more. I love the Bludgeon Brothers. I thought they were an awesome sort of throwback tag team. They make me laugh in a good way, and yet sometimes they don't even feature on the show. So again, I would rather invest more time into them. But if they were going to lose it, I don't even know who I would go with. I mean, the problem with SmackDown is all the teams have kind of had it so many times. They just kind of just hard. I mean, maybe put on the bar for a while. Yeah, I wouldn't. Really, I keep on the Bludgeon Brothers. I just treat them a bit differently.
Yeah, I think the problem I have with the bar is that to me they still seem like Sheamus and Cesaro. They still seem like two separate superstars that have been. They didn't have anything to do with them on the singles roster, so they've thrown them together. And I'm not criticizing their chemistry; they work very well together. They're a very good team, but they don't seem like two that are going to stay as a team. They're eventually they're going to remember what they want to do with them. Whereas the Bludgeon Brothers or the AOP or the Revival, they're proper teams. I suppose the Revival, as I said before, they're the ones that I would like to see get the Raw belts and go on and be champions and be quite dominant champions. I think watching some of the other teams chase them and challenge them in a similar way to DIY did in NXT, I think they could have some really, really good matches that way.
Yeah, I think the tag team division could be focused on more. But apparently Vince McMahon doesn't like tag team wrestling, so I don't know. We will see. We will see what happens. Right, there are more questions, which I'll make sure I answer in a future podcast. I've written them all down, so I don't want to. I will get back to them, but it is getting rather late over here in the UK, and I have to get up at the crack of dawn to get my shoulder checked out. So I thought I'd just bring it to an end. That's what I'm doing. So it's as simple as that. But I will get to your questions down the line. But Steve, thank you very much for joining me. Is there any other wrestling-related content you'd like to talk about before we draw this to a close?
No. I think we've covered everything that's going on this week and what's coming up. So no, I'm quite happy with what we've done.
Awesome.
I'd just like to say, I wasn't going to talk about this while we were on, but just to throw in my weight behind what everybody else is saying, the well wishes for you.
That's very kind.
It's as a fan and as a listener, it's awesome following your journey. As a kid, when I was 11 years old, I was telling everybody that I was going to be a professional wrestler, and then at some point, I realised that's not the world for me, or I don't belong in that world, and I kind of let that dream die. So the fact that, you've got to a stage where you've gone, you know what, screw it, this is my dream, I'm going to follow it.
Wow,
and we're kind of coming along with you for the ride. I'm living my dream vicariously through you, so we've got everything behind you.
That I don't even have a response, man. That's ridiculously nice of you, and I really appreciate that. And without wanting to sound too cheesy, it's words like that keep me going. So thank you, man. That genuinely means a lot to me. And like I say, I've got this update tomorrow, so I will put a podcast out over the weekend where I answer the rest of your questions, and I'll tell you what's happened. Obviously, I'll keep you updated as well at Simon at 316. But thank you, Steve. Thank you for the support, and thank you for the kind words, man. That really does mean a lot.
Oh, no, thank you for having me on. I've really enjoyed it.
Always, dude. Again, you can support all of this at patreon.com/Simon at 316, which, as some people have asked, so I will say, yes, that does also support my wrestling stuff, because if I have to go away for 3 days and I can't do any work, that's how it ties in. So, again, I've always said this was a journey for everybody, and I stand by that. So, yeah, thank you so much to everybody. Facebook group, Simon Miller's Pro Wrestling Podcast, Simon at 316 on Instagram, on Twitter, and if you'd rather watch the podcast, it's youtube.com/The Miller Report Rules. Stephen, thank you very much again. I just called you Stephen there. I don't know why I threw an N on your end of your name.
Am I in trouble suddenly?
I don't know. I know I did that. I just thought what I'm talking about. Thank you very much, as always. Thank you very much for everyone joining me. Sorry about last week. Sorry that we've only done one this week, but hopefully it's a little bit longer than usual, and we ticked all the boxes. And like I said, I will get another one up. Just a short update over the weekend so you know where we stand. If you're on iTunes, give us a review. Give us 5 stars. And if nothing else, again, thank you to everyone for all the support, all the kind words. Not only is it awesome anyway, but it negates all the idiots that like to come after me as well. But it's all good. You put yourself out there, and you've got to expect all that. But anyway, I will talk to you all very soon.